Hi guys, watch my process of creating a corset crochet top based on a sewing pattern. I've never done this before, but I've had the feeling for quite some time to create a perfectly fitting garment based on a sewing pattern. I've been really diving into the creation of sleeves and such, and I just know that there is still plenty to learn, like darts for example. It all started when I learned about this wonderful website, Moon Fabrics. They have tons of free sewing patterns you can choose from for all different types of projects: dresses, pants, tops, jackets, and so on. I browsed all the patterns for quite some time. It was difficult to decide what to choose because there are just so many options, but I knew I wanted a project that is rather tight-fitting, meaning I don't want to choose an oversized item as I feel the use of a sewing pattern would be reduced. I also wanted to try something new, something I've not yet done, and something that I would not create if there was not a pattern. I finally decided on this spearmint corset. I'll leave the link in the description box if you want to check it out for yourself. I wasn't convinced by the photos, but this black and white drawing really did the trick. The shaping required for forming a corset shape is really intricate, and I was just intrigued. I already believe that I'm going to have to make adjustments because I'm not the biggest fan of the bows on the shoulders. It's cute, yes, but rather unpractical as you can no longer really wear it with a cardigan. Also, I want to make sure that the back is not open because I'm always wearing a bra and I really don't like seeing it with an open back. I researched other people's recreations of this corset to further get inspired, and they looked really good. Next step to the creation of a crochet garment is choosing your yarn. I bought this beautiful green colored cotton yarn that I want to use in combination with this cream colored yarn. Not sure how I plan to combine them, but let's first just print out the pattern. Let's analyze this pattern in detail. Before printing the entire pattern, I only printed the first page because of the big bold disclaimer here. The square on the left should measure 2 inches to ensure the correct sizing of the pattern. Once that's correct, you can see on the grid on the right how the following pages should connect together. Time to lay it out on the floor and see it come to life. The corners have clear circles to help you align the pages perfectly. I decided to stick them together with tape. I didn't have to stick all the pages as the entire pattern can be divided into 2 parts. I was doing this so meticulously, caring about every millimeter. You'll see later on that there was absolutely no need to be this precise. Next, it's time to decide the size I need. The pattern provides finished sizing and body measurements. I don't usually have a tape measure with me, so I use my well-trusted method of a piece of yarn, of which I measured the length afterwards with this building measure. Time now for some mathematics, as I'm used to the metric system and this whole pattern is in inches. I take the pattern to see which measurement this corresponds to. So the bust size is a size 14, but my waist is a size 16. This means that I will have to make some modifications, but to postpone this as much as possible, I first decided to use a highlighter to highlight size 16 on the pattern. The sizes are displayed using different line patterns, but this can get quite confusing from afar. I then decided to freehand the modifications on the first page for reference. Then I also realized there were seam allowances included in the pattern. In sewing terms, this means that an extra margin is added so that you can create a border for the seams. But for crochet, you don't need this border, so I detailed all of this on the front sketch. Then it was time for cutting. This allows the pattern to be easier to copy. So I stuck the pieces of paper onto my window and took a very large leaf of white paper coming from a whiteboard to trace the pattern pieces. Kind notice if anyone wants to recreate this, the front piece has to be mirrored for the complete front part. Next up is cutting these pieces up to size. To take the seam allowances into account, I cut further in the darts at the front. I measured the seam allowances and I folded these parts down as you would in a real sewing, if this was a fabric. Behold the masterpiece! These are all the pattern pieces laid out together on my floor. I used the tape to tape these pieces together to check the sizing, meaning I created a paper corset for my size. The straps over the shoulders clearly weren't long enough. Remember, I was skipping the shoulder bows, so I added 2 large strips of paper by tape to determine which length they should have while wearing it on. By the way, this was crazy difficult. Fabric is so much easier to work with than paper. It started to tear a little and the tape let go at some parts. I slightly adjusted some areas under the arms to allow for more space. Don't mind the mess, this is the final result on the floor. As I knew I had to take the pieces apart again, I decided to go over the seams with a black marker so I would surely remember how large the pieces had to be and where they were supposed to be folded. Now it's finally time to start crocheting. I created this swatch with the cream colored yarn. I always try out different stitches and hook sizes to find the perfect combination. And I wanted to create something that wasn't transparent, that worked up rather quickly because this is a very thin yarn. And I chose this textured stitch based on the front post and back post double crochets. I created 3 different sections in this test swap. One is with a 4.5mm hook, but this felt a bit too loose, too messy. The definition of the stitches is kind of lost. I created a section with a 3mm hook. I really like this one, but it might be a bit too thick of a fabric. Might also use quite some yarn. I don't want to create a heavy crochet top. So I also tried a section where there's only relief on the front and not on the back, but I don't know. I like the middle one the most, so that's what we're working with. I can get very in my head about small things when using a stitch, a hook size, and even a working direction. To give you an example, this is my headspace at that point. Oh yeah, by the way, I'm working from top to bottom because I made this also in this direction. I think it looks better upside down. This may be a particular preference of mine, but it just, maybe looking at it again doesn't change much, but somehow I prefer this. Is that ridiculous? It probably is. Doesn't matter. I'm working from the bottom down up 2 sides and then I'll split it up into 3. I think that's easier also. Here I started on the actual top. I started by chaining 8 to keep the same thickness as for the test swap. Then I did a row of half double crochets so that I could continue further on with the textured stitch. I will continue on like this, going straight without any increases or decreases up until this point, and then I will start increasing for the curvatures. I got so invested in my audiobook that I completely forgot to film this happening, but this is where I've gotten so far. You can see that at the end here I made quite a big mistake. It's too long, but it's okay, it's a strap, so that just means I will have to add less strap on the other side here. A row of half double crochets by using the foundation half double crochet, just to add the more increased incline. And on this side I'm just doing increases like I normally would. I am doubting that maybe it's too much texture. Like, I feel it's maybe a bit too thick and heavy. Not like really heavy, like in weight, but the view of it is maybe a bit rough. What am I doing? I should stop here. I need to make a new one. I need to connect both parts and then continue. I'm so stupid. I do not have to go until half here. I don't want to attach 2 parts. Okay, so I'm just going to stop here, cut that part off, and try to replicate this exactly on the other side and hope that it starts to look good. This is the bad part about working with a pattern. You cannot necessarily try it on as you go, like at all. So I showed this to my boyfriend also, and he said, oh, it looks perfect. And yes, it looks like it, but making two the same pieces is actually really difficult, and this one is larger than this one. Yes. So now what do? Do I go back and fix it, or do I leave it because it looks okay? Okay, so I counted the difference, and apparently it's a 7-stitch difference. This side is 40 stitches and we have 24, and this is 33. So yeah, I'm definitely going back because this is too much. So I cheated. I went back just one row, didn't fix the actual cause of the mistake, but I made it as such that they are now almost even at 2 stitches. So this is now 37 stitches and this one is 35. So I'm thinking I will be able to get it back to its normal state. I'm almost at the largest part of the front piece. I'm getting really excited about it. And a few rows further and I'm at the largest point. Now I only have to make these few more rows back and forth before splitting off the lower parts. We're finally at the point where it's the moment to split up. So I'm actually not making it exactly the size. I want it to stretch out a bit to have the correct form. It's because it's quite a stretchy fabric, and I think the worst thing I could do is make it exactly fit and then be too big. So I want to leave a bit of possibility but also not too much. So I'm making it the tiniest bit smaller but doable, kind of like this. And the neckline, I might have made it a bit higher, but I really like how it looks. So yeah, I'm at the part now where the dart would begin for the corset. So I'm going to finish this part, then start this part, try to make it exactly alike, and then I'm going to do this part, which is easier because it's symmetrical, which I prefer. Because you know what you did at the beginning of the row, you can do the same at the end, and then you continue down. I'm still not sure if I want to do the point, but I think that's something I can decide once I did both. I'm also thinking, should I make this, so I'm going to make this part and this part first, but should I, when I make this part, attach it directly? Or should I make it separately and then kind of like sew it together? I'm going to try to make this part first and then we'll see. So I worked on this first part, figuring out where to decrease, because they need to decrease on both sides, but not the same amount. Okay, so I finished one part. Like I said, it's supposed to be like stretched out a bit, and I continue that here as well. Maybe it's a bit too small, but maybe not. Like I think it could be stretched out, or I may have made it too small. But yeah, maybe I'm not following the pattern 100% anymore. Then on the other side, the pattern is made for straight fabric that's not stretchy at all, and this is definitely a stretchy fabric, but the stretch it has in the beginning is not the same amount of stretch it can have at the end because there's fewer stitches. So it may have gotten too small near the bottom. Oh yeah, on another note, I completely forgot to mention, but I was planning to use this beautiful green yarn as a border and also to define like the boning of the corset. I think that would look really pretty, or at least that's what I thought. Now I'm not so sure anymore, so also something to see in the future. But I do love this color. And if I had found more than just this single skein, can you call it a skein? Ball? Then I would have made the corset completely in this color. I think that's gorgeous. But they only had this one, and I looked online and it's completely depleted everywhere. So I'm going to have to find a use for this. where I don't need too much. I went back home to my family in the weekend and crocheted a bit more in the couch while catching up with my mom. This is me showing you the finished other side of the front piece. But now I want to see what it looks like in the mirror. Of course, it still needs a middle piece. I don't know exactly what I'm trying to look at because this says absolutely nothing. I continued working on the front part off camera until it was finished, and similarly to the other parts, I made it a bit smaller to allow for stretch. But seeing it like this, I decided that I would take less margin, maybe even none, for the next parts, because it does seem like I'm trying to stretch it a bit too much. Following a sewing pattern is really a fun challenge because you get to make these strange flat shapes. It really gets you working on your increases and decreases. I'm really happy with how the shape turned out. It's obvious that the margin for this one is a lot less. It follows the lines exactly. So now it's time to make the second one, but then mirrored. The first one is always more fun because of the freedom you get, but that's because I really want to try and create an exact mirrored replica so that it looks really put together. But before I do that, I want to see what the front piece looks like with the seams attached. It's just impossible to imagine what it looks like without the seams. I tried pinching the sides together, but as you can see, no luck. I started seaming the parts from the bottom up to make absolutely sure that the bottoms were aligned. And this is what it looks like sewn together. Let's look at it on the body. It's too small to try it without a shirt and show you guys, so I'm showing it over my top. I had a bit of a stress here because I think it looks really good, but also really small. So I'm happy I created the next parts without the stretch margin. I'm also doubting my ability to read a sewing pattern. Let's quickly finish the second side piece so that I can sew these on as well and try again. See if it hits the middle down my armpit. Fingers crossed. I'm now able to add both sides onto the front piece. So let's try it on again. Looks like the sides are hitting the sides of my body as well, so I think that means the sizing is correct. Maybe it's more difficult to see with the top underneath, so I took it off, and the width looks alright, but it does seem extremely short. I must be honest, I have a clip of 5 minutes of myself looking at this in the mirror, and I'm having doubts at this point. If I'm ever going to be able to wear it, well, wear it yes, but at least see if it's one of my wearable pieces in day-to-day life. The only way to find out is just to keep going and correct it where needed later. So, time to start the back of the strap part. Because I made the strap on the front too long, I tried it on again with the paper corset and drew the line for the back part. That strap really needed to be shortened. The stitch I used started flowing quicker and quicker. I was mostly crocheting late at night in the rather dark and checking out the result in the light of the next day. And I really like how this one turned out as well. So I finished the second one too. I attached them to the main piece like on the paper pattern on both sides, and then I realized that it already covered the entire circumference of my body, so no other part was still required. So naturally, I attached them in the round as well. That does mean that the two strap parts are now against each other and there's a V neckline in the back. Let's try it on. So let's list the positives. It fits even better. It's super stretchy, so I can easily get it over my head and I do not need a strap bow attachment in the back or a zipper or anything. I also like the obvious seam in the back. It gives it a little bit something extra. However, there are also quite some negatives. First of all, I do not like the fact that you can see the closure of my bra peeping out behind. Also, I don't like the look of the bra under the armpits. I don't know how I'm going to fix that one. I could try to shorten the straps, and make everything sit higher, then it would be even shorter. And also the darts in the neckline look really strange this way. The next change I have to make are the dart seams. They are super obvious and flat and they don't look really nice. So I'll try to recreate the textured vibe on them. I think I do like these flatter parts for the seams though, because just like the back, they give this a little something extra. I tried to take away the stretch at the armholes by creating a non-stretch border, hoping to hide the bra a bit. And I was so excited about it that I'm showing you this in the dark with only one light source. And as you can see, it fixed the problem on one side entirely without needing to shorten the straps. So I'm starting on the second armhole, and I just had to show you how big of a difference there is with and without this border. The back one has the border already and the front one doesn't. Just look at how much extra fabric there seems to be. And when I hold it up by the straps, the difference is enormous. After tackling the armpits, I wanted to tackle the back with the bra still showing. So I decided to create a little triangle that could fit in the spot. I attached it and tried it on. After I filmed this and saw what it looks like, I immediately took that down. That looks absolutely horrible. I hate that. I was clearly tired when I tried that because I didn't think about the obvious, which is to make the back seam in the middle go higher. As you can see, that just looks way better. It's a lot more subtle. Now that the back is also fixed, it's time to tackle the shortness. Actually, a few days went by because I had to think of a stitch that has stretch in the working direction. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to get the top on or off so easily. But also, I wanted it to be a straight, simple edge without too much texture, and definitely not the same stitch that I had been doing this entire time. So instead, I decided to add the textured lines on the dart seams, and I started weaving in all the ends, which also took quite a while. Eventually found a Japanese video tutorial to create this simple stretchy border that is a variation on single crochets. So ta-da! I'm so happy to see it finished. All my doubts are gone again. It is relatively short, but that makes it perfect to add on a long maxi skirt. I can definitely see myself wearing this. As it's made of cotton, it's perfect for a summer top, but I think it's also perfect for layering. How would you style this top? I want to finish off this video by showing you some detailed shots of parts I'm really proud of. First is the connection of both straps, the shoulder straps. I continued the textured pattern to make the seam completely invisible. The second one is I connected the textured dart seam to the textured line already present in the pattern, making it seamless. And finally, this border made out of a variation of single crochets that is stretchy. So happy with this. Thank you very much for watching the entire video, and let me know if you want to see something special from me. I love to keep trying new things. Bye!